Hello, and welcome to Read Scholars Live. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Fleming, and current president of Read Scholars. Today, I am joined by guest Chuck Perkins, who is a new friend and colleague in New Orleans native, and invited him to the show to share a little bit about his journey. So, first, tell me, how are you? How does life find you today?
Oh, I am fantastic. I couldn't have been better. I already got up and went and cut some weeds at a rental property I have, and hurry up, ran back home, and just to get ready for this big interview today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you making the time for us. And so, when we spoke a while ago and talking about the podcast, I was excited to share with our listeners your unique journey. So I know life is taking you on a few turns, from growing up in New Orleans and being back and being an entrepreneur. And you mentioned rental property, but you also own another business, and now you've written a book. So, first just kind of share with us a little bit about, your journey from growing up in New Orleans to now.
Well, I feel like I'm a typical New Orleans guy. I went to all public schools, and I grew up in a part of New Orleans called Pigeon Town. It was a lot of working class Black people, but I really enjoyed my experience growing up here in New Orleans. I felt like it was exciting and a lot of fun, even though, it was clear to me when we stepped out of our neighborhood and went and checked out the larger community. It was obvious that we had a little less than the others, but I still enjoyed growing up here. And in some ways in my life, I knew, you mentioned I wrote a book, and there was one thing I mentioned in my book. I said, man, I love my family, but I hated being poor.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew, like me, my three brothers and sisters, and my parents, it was seven of us for the most part, raised in a 2-bedroom house. And I love all of them to death. But I said, I never want to live in such close proximity with other human beings in my life, So it's like I wanted to figure out, how, what were the things I needed to do to be able to free myself from poverty, I suppose. And in some ways, it's really serendipitous. I went to the Marine Corps, and the only reason I went to the Marine Corps is because I think my father was kind of old school. He's like, I graduated from high school. I'm 18 years old. It's like, all right, good luck.
So, you gotta go do
I'm saying to
something out
myself,
here. Right?
all that fun I was having, playing football, hanging out with girls, and going to party. Am I really prepared for, I'm getting shoved out the nest a little bit. Am I prepared for this? I said, you know what I can do? I'm gonna buy myself some time. Because I knew I couldn't just hang out in the neighborhood. It was clear to me, even at a young age, for the people who just hung around, I don't know, for some reason that never ended so well. And so I decided I was going to go to the Marine Corps by myself 3 more years so I could really start focusing and figuring out what I was going to do. And so I did that. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I ended up going to Xavier University. And in some ways, I got to be honest, I was a little self-conscious of knowing whether or not I was prepared for college. Mm. And so when I came back home, I talked to one of my partners who's an attorney now here in New Orleans, Jeff Gates. And he said, well, Chuck, what are you going to do? I said, oh, man, I think I'm going to go enroll in this junior college. He said, a junior college? Why? I said, I don't know, man, if I'm ready for like a university. And he laughed at me. He was like, man, you better go fill out this application for Xavier and come here, I said, you really think it's possible? He said, yeah, of course. And I filled out the application and I was admitted. I did have to take some remedial math courses. And, but I would say I did that in about halfway through my sophomore year. I was really ready for college. But I got to give a shout out for Xavier and HBCUs. I have to, because I ended up doing very well in college. But I really believe if I had gone to, like, my daughters both went to LSU. Well, one graduated, one is going there. I think if I went to a school like LSU, where I was just another student on the campus, and there weren't some teachers and faculty who took, an interest in me, who said, this dude, he is trying, and I probably would have dropped out of school and just say, it's not for me. But being in a community like Xavier, I had a couple instructors early on who'd come to my house on the weekend just to, help brush me up to speed. So that was like a great decision I made to go to a university like that. And so, when I graduated from Xavier. I ended up working in sales, and again, poverty is, or the past is still kind of holding me down a little bit, because I'm in a university, and it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to study? What are you going to major in? And I didn't feel like I had the freedom or the luxury to say, this is the thing that resonates with me right here, that I feel, and I should major in that. I was like, I'm playing the odds. When I graduate, I need a job. I need somebody to pay me. And somehow I was talking to somebody about being a business major, and I was like, okay, that sounds good. I mean, everything is business, and so if you're a business major, you got all, so I ended up working in sales. I worked for Kraft Foods, and then I worked for a pharmaceutical company. And then around like 2008, my company got bought out by another company, and it was scary. I mean, it was I got the phone call. Hey, listen, well, GlaxoSmithKline bought this company out, and so we're gonna give you a nice little severance package. But after this day, then you're on your own. And I got kids who's still in school. I got mortgages. I got card notes. I'm like, oh Lord Jesus. And I told myself, I say, hey, well, one thing I did, that money I got from the severance thing, I bought my first rental property. I could have went and got me a fly car or something like that, but I was like, nah, I bought that. I went and bought some property, and that really was what I needed to give me time to figure things out, because at least I got some money. I got some money coming in, right? And so I said, okay, I'm gonna try and see if I don't make a decision like I made when I was going to college, like I just need to figure out somebody to pay me some money. I'm gonna see if it's possible for me to make a living doing stuff I really like doing. And so I got a band. I was writing poetry. I had a CD. I was traveling. I mean, I still got the money coming in from the rental property, and it was all sort of serendipitous. The next thing you know, I'm because I had this band and I was generating this following. My business partner at the time asked if I would partner with him with this club. And I said, sure, I can do that. And so now it's been 10 years. I bought him out like about 2 years ago. And, it's there was a commercial one time that say, if you get a job finding something you enjoy doing, then you never have to work a day in your life. And so that's how I feel like I'm in that place right now. Don't get me wrong, I work really hard, because they have people who come in my place sometimes and they might think I'm the janitor, because I don't care. I will wash dishes, mop the floors, take out the trash, whatever needs to be done, I will do it, but I really enjoy doing what I'm doing. And it's the only job I've ever had in my life where I would actually look forward to going to work and getting everything started. So, okay, so my business is going great. It's finally, it was hard too. It's difficult because it's a beautiful venue. It was all new renovations and everything. And early on, I thought, just because of the way it looked, all I got to do is open the doors and then I'm going to get filthy rich. No. It was, especially in a place like New Orleans, because there's so many music venues and clubs and bars and stuff like that. There's a lot of competition. And so through a lot of hard work, things really start clicking. I'm going to say maybe 2-3 years ago. And then COVID happened. And in some ways, to be perfectly honest, I believe that COVID has added years to my life. And I don't want to diminish the fact that there are a lot of us have taken losses with COVID. Like I personally know a lot of people who died and people who've lost loved ones, and we should never lose sight of that or diminish that. But with that being said, for me personally, it's the first time, like I'm at home cooking more than I have ever probably in my life. I get to sleep 7 and 8 hour days. Like the last time I probably could sleep like this, I was a teenager. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And more importantly, in addition to the good food, the rest, I wrote my first book. I put it down now for about 3 or 4 months. It's called Back of Town, and I'm very, very proud of it. And so now it's in a process where I've been sending it to a few agents, heard from a couple of them. They both seem to like it. They both express that they think I'm a great storyteller, but they think that my story needs a little more, like it needs to be structured a little more, right? And now, but I'm still currently waiting on an African American agent out of New York, and so I just want to see what she says, because a friend of mine is Dr. Gerald Horn. He's in Houston. He's over the African Studies Department at the University of Houston, and this brother has written over 30 books. And he read it, and he said he only made minor changes. And so I'm waiting to get his what he think what changes he thinks I should make. I'm waiting to get that in the mail right now. So anyway, I want to wait to see with the African American agent, the sister, what she has to say. But either way, I put this book down now for about 3 or 4 months, so I haven't really been in it. But once, even if she says, "Wow, we like it, we want to do something with it," I still want to revise it again anyway. I do want to try to take one more shot at just typing
a little bit more.
Yeah, yep. So I hit you with a long run-on sentence.
That's perfectly fine. You got it all in. And so, I'd preface the beginning of the podcast that, you're a great storyteller. So I had to let you tell the story, right? And one of the reasons that I have you on is because of that, because I wanted to bring some context, and you hit on all those things. So we talk a lot about health equity. You talked about, 7 people in a 2-bedroom house, and what does that mean? And what does that mean on how you value things growing up, how you interact with the world. I'm talking about worthiness and preparedness, and how you decided that whether or not you were ready for college or go to the military, and the decisions that makes. And that's all important when we talk about educational attainment, right? And that goes into what kind of job that you're going to have. And then we talk about, I have a friend who you ask her how she's doing, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just doing revolutionary things like paying rent," right? Because that's not, for a lot of us, rent is not guaranteed every month, right? Sometimes we're putting these little dollars together and trying to make it work. It's not an automatic withdrawal from your bank account for most people. We've got to work hard at that. And sometimes the jobs, like you said, that you don't necessarily like, but you got kids to feed, and maybe a partner to support, and you got to do what you have to do, and that changes how you interact with the world. And then one of the other things that you said that I thought, and we've only touched on that a little bit in this podcast, was about buying rental property, because that speaks to creating generational wealth for our kids, right? And that's something that we haven't had access to as a larger population, forever since we've been here. So, and having the foresight to say, I don't want what's flashy and temporary in this moment. Let me do something that will not just help support my family right now, but may even help support my kids in the future. And so reframing, how you invest your money, and having the confidence to do that, right? That's often a step out on faith. Like, I'm gonna put this money over here and hope somebody moves into this place and pays their rent on time, so that we can all eat. So, and kind of the last thing, and when you're talking about your book, is thinking about your audience, right? And so, how how do I want to say, how we are seen is different, right? Depending on who's reading our story. And so it's interesting that you said it, you know, you want to see what this last agent has to say, and having your friend read the book, and, you know, how we see it might not be the same as somebody who can't relate to the story. So I'll be interested to follow along and to see what the new agency says, and to see what kind of tweaks you like to make after you've stepped away from it for a little while. Um, but so I guess my next question is kind of being in New Orleans. And so New Orleans, of course, is a city near and dear to my heart. So I'm biased, right? Because I went to school there. Of course, I went to Xavier as well, and I visit a lot. And I often say it's a city that I love so much, but it also breaks my heart, just because there's just some infrastructural things that I think have not been rectified in years, and I can't speak to all the nuances of that. And we can think back to Katrina and all the things that happened then, and talk about now with COVID-19, and at the point, and there was a point in the pandemic that their rates were higher than the rest of the country, and thinking about some of the distribution and allocation issues with the COVID vaccine now. But you know, being from there, and I know that's your heart, talk to us a little bit about what your hopes for the city is or are.
Yeah, it's you know, like everyone else, you know, I want it to be a city that thrives. I want it to be a city, well, everyone thrives, right? But that's the magic question. Um, you know, just like I guess in urban areas all across the country, we have this word gentrification now. It's a word that we're all familiar with, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
people always discussing that. And I know some people in New Orleans believe that maybe it's just something that's happening here, but it really isn't. It's all over the country. Is I guess the taste of Americans have changed. There was a time when it seemed like the idea of success was to, you know, have buy a house as far away from the urban center
Right
as
out in the
possible,
suburbs.
you know, and it was
Mm-hmm.
safe and pristine and looked like a picture perfect postcard, and you know, every blade of grass is in place. But you know, for the most part, and so people with money, they left and went there, and it was just people like the folk I grew up with, you know, kind of left in the city mostly, and so, but now that's reversed, and it's a problem. And one of my friends and I, we were talking about that earlier today, and the problem is that, you know, if you play big bank take little bank, then the people who left to go buy the big houses, you know, out in the suburbs, they seem to, you know, have an edge up. They seem to have more resources, more money than a lot of people who were left in the urban area. Now it's difficult because you can't. It's difficult if you say, well, you can't go buy that house. You know, I'm not sure if that would be fair. But here's the thing that I think we need some forward thinking politicians to kind of weigh in on, and that is, or to make sure they make the right decision, be forward thinking. And that is, like, I have a friend who the polite term for this neighborhood is, they start in the 70s, they started calling it, the politicians, they called it the Black Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was growing up, we call it N-word town, right? Because they had a lot of N-words that lived there. But right now they ain't got a lot of N-words live there. No more. You understand? And so, like, one of my partners, his family, his wife's family own about 30 houses, mostly in that area. And now they, of course, they don't have that many of those properties anymore. But the house that they live in, her family's been in this house for 45 years or so. And so now there is a guy in the city who owns a pizza chain called Reginelli's. Well, he goes and purchases one house on one corner, and it's like 1.5 mil. And somebody else get a house on the other corner for $1 million. So here's the problem. You can't tell Reginelli you can't buy that house, or you can't tell the other man you can't buy that house. But because they decide they're going to pay a million and 1.5 million for the house, and now they got to pay X amount of taxes on 1.5 million, and now you're going to say, well, my friend's house is now worth $800,000, but whatever the taxes is on an $800,000 house, they're not in, they can't afford taxes on that. Right. And so because of these other people decide that they want to spend that kind of money on these houses that, that used to be extremely affordable. Those houses for working class people. So why can't we figure out a way to make sure that, hey, this family has been here, and whatever taxes they were paying, then they're grandfathered in, and that's what taxes they're going to be paying. And so I think that's the kind of forward thinking politicians we have to have, because if you don't do that, then that means that a person with deep enough pockets who willing to play the waiting game could just go any place and say, well, we're gonna buy this and we're gonna price you out. You ain't gonna be able to, that all the taxes gonna increase, and you won't be able to afford it, and then it's gonna be mine anyway.
Yeah.
So if we don't do that sort of thing in New Orleans, because New Orleans is a very charming city, it has a deep history. It preceded the kind of prefab houses where you ride down the street and everything looked the same. It has this certain kind of charm. And unfortunately, they got people with a lot more resources, a lot deeper pockets, a lot more money, who they like those houses now. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do something to at least give working class people the opportunity to stay in their houses if they want to, then they just going to continually be pushed out.
Yeah. And we could have a whole show on gentrification and the the pluses and minuses. That's a whole nother conversation that we won't dive into today. But I mean, your points are valid, I think, and trying to protect the resources that are there. We understand that there are houses that are boarded up that need to be renovated, and that shouldn't come at the cost of pricing out the people who are stable in the community and have been there for decades. That's not fair.
The same people who held it down, when other folks were running as far away from the city as they could. Right. Now the reward you get is, now we're going to give you this tax that you can't afford no more.
Right. So it's now that it's trending. But so I don't want to keep you long. I know you have plenty of other things to do besides talking to me. So kind of as we close, what's on the horizon for you? What are you looking forward to on the other side of COVID-19?
Well, New Orleans just went to move to phase 3. And, my club is my business is not the kind of business where you can say, okay, well, you can have people come in now and just open, and like, people plan, they plan stuff at my place. Now, before COVID, my calendar was packed almost every single day of the month. And sometimes on Saturdays and Sundays, I might have 2 and 3 events, happening. And so, I'm hoping that we can get on the other side of this, and that my phone could start ringing again, and people can start planning with the ability of feeling like they're going to be safe, and we won't be like super spreaders or something like that. Right. So we can start planning more events, and also, it's hard for me to move on without this book. I got to get closure with this book, and so I am going to do that revision, and I'm waiting on Dr. Horn's, all of his feedback to come back, and I think I'm going to go to Chicago for maybe 10 days and just turn everything off, disconnect, and focus on the book and see what I come up with.
I like it. Well, when Back of Town gets published, you let us know, and we will do whatever we can to support you and get the word out. So keep us posted on that.
I would like to come back on the podcast. So.
Yeah, definitely. Open invite. You let me know when. All right. Well, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you being a part of our show. I love talking to you. I love hearing your stories. So I appreciate you being able to and be willing to share the story with our audience. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much as well. And so Hope to see you in New Orleans at Cafe Istanbul. I ain't gonna say nothing about the Crown in 7 or nothing like that.
Don't tell all my business now. All right, I will see you soon.
All right, y'all, take it easy now. Okay.
Thank you for listening to Reed Scholars Live. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or subscribe to our YouTube channel.